Hello and welcome to another edition to Next Weather. I'm meteorologist Hannah Fink. Now this week, the Storm Tracker team has been mentioning a cold front that could be moving through the area this week. Now, one thing about cold fronts during the summer months is they don't act as the term cold. They actually don't really do much to our temperatures at all. So I wanted to do an episode, or as you'd say, or a presentation to talk about what exactly a cold front does during these hot summer months, because it's very different season by season how fronts interact with the atmosphere. So we're going to go on and jump right into it. So first I'm going to just define what a cold front is. A cold front is the leading edge of a cooler, drier air mass that pushes into an area and forces the hot, humid air to rise. So as that warm air is lifting, it often creates showers and thunderstorms, and sometimes those can be heavy or severe or widespread. So right now we've been dealing with pretty dry air aloft, and just for the summer of August in general, it's been pretty dry and hot and humid. We've seen heat advisories issued all summer long and going through the dog days of summer, as you explain it, for August. Well, as a cold front moves through in these summer months, it pushes out that hot, humid air. It has drier air behind it, and it actually increases our thunderstorm activity as well. So cold fronts in these hot months, like I mentioned, they're not always cold. In the summer, cold fronts don't usually bring chilly air like in the fall or winter months. Instead, they often only lower the temperature slightly, maybe a degree or two off from the average. Around this time of year, we're about 90 degrees for the average. So that could mean being in the upper 80s, 87 degrees, 89 degrees, 88, you name it, just a few degrees off. So this can be anywhere from the mid to upper 90s down to the upper 80s to lower 90s. So in this case, around 90, 91 is our average for the month of August. We could see ourselves in the upper 80s by next week. That is something we've been seeing in our 7-day forecast in the long range into early parts of next week. The big difference is how our humidity is accounted for. The front helps push that humidity out, and some of that muggy Gulf air just is not as oppressive as what it feels. It can still be hot out there. It's still going to be somewhat present depending on the strength of these cold fronts. Sometimes if it's a pretty decent strength in a cold front, we can get dew points into the mid 60s, which you still feel that humid Gulf air, but it's not as oppressive. We're not in that miserable category. We're actually we're in the noticeable category at that point, where you're like, oh, it feels a little humid out there, but when you walk out the door, it's not hitting you in the face. You're not going to sweat automatically. You're not going to feel the sweat drip down your back right as you walk outside of your home. And another big thing is storm chances increase. So as a front approaches, it collides with this hot and moist air over the city of Mobile or southern Alabama, parts of Mississippi and northwest Florida. That usually sparks scattered to widespread thunderstorms, especially in the afternoon and evening. We talk about it all the time, boundaries combining. So like sometimes we'll have an outflow boundary, which is that cooler, moister air that a thunderstorm can push away from itself. And when it combines with the sea breeze, makes stronger thunderstorms. Kind of the same idea. So you have that boundary that is the cold front, which is the dividing of the air. The front, a way to think about a front is dividing air. It is dividing the difference between two air masses. So with this cold front, we have the cooler, drier air behind the cold front, and that is moving into a more warm, moist air, which is the current state. So as that front approaches, it collides with that hot, moist air mass. That usually sparks these thunderstorms, so that's why we usually see about a 50 to 70% chance of showers and thunderstorms, so more scattered to widespread. During the summertime, we see those isolated pop-up random thunderstorms that are about 15 to 20 minutes long. When cold fronts approach, and especially if they stall, they can be a lot more long-lived, they can be more widespread, and they can be continuous throughout the day. So there's a big difference there. And the one thing we do appreciate with cold fronts during this time of year, even though they don't help us temperature-wise, they do bring us relief in our humidity. So sometimes that front, like I mentioned, stalls. So if it's going to stall, that means it doesn't move. So it can stall near our area, lose strength and that relief. So it brings us the relief of that mugginess, but it returns pretty quickly, especially if it's not a strong one. But if it's a strong front that stalls, we can have relief for a couple of days. But at some point we do have to go back to those terribly humid conditions. So why this matters for us, why we pay attention to this, is cold fronts can trigger clusters of thunderstorms, sometimes bringing those gusty winds, heavy rain, or even localized flooding. Now, I know we're pretty used to that with these summertime thunderstorms because those short-lived ones usually can pack a punch. Well, these ones are a little bit slower moving, so that's why you see a little bit more of that flooding risk, because if a thunderstorm is dumping a lot of rain and it's moving slowly, that's putting a lot of rain on one singular location. Another thing is it gives us a break from humidity, so it's always good news for us to tell y'all that it's going to be feeling a lot nicer outside. It doesn't feel like you are being choked out by the air when you walk outside. It almost feels fresher, especially during those morning lows. It's very nice to go on morning walks with a friend, your spouse, even your furry friend. Your furry friend especially appreciates it because that means the pavement doesn't get as hot. So that's another thing that's great. It feels refreshing outside, especially as that front is near us or has just moved past our area. And another thing to mention is a pattern change. In late summer, these fronts are a hint of the seasonal shift towards fall, especially when they're on the stronger side. We have seen about 1 or 2 of those weaker cold fronts move through our area. All it really did for us was increase our rain chances. Didn't really do much to our temperatures, didn't really do much to that humidity. We remember that cold front that moved through about a month ago. It just brought a lot of rain to our area, but it still felt oppressively humid outside. But they can sometimes be an early indicator of we're getting close to a seasonal change nationally, not just for our area. The entire world goes through seasonal changes at the same time. We just have different aspects to each climatological season depending on where we are located. So obviously we don't get those brown leaves falling during the fall, that fall type weather. Ours is a little different. It just means drier air can start to settle into the area a little bit more compared to our summer humidity that we usually experience. Now I wanted to show you what this looks like on our models. So this is what we are currently looking at. Here's that front as it is slowly moving through the area. Let me pull this up in a different way so you can see it a little better. Let me pull up Mac Mini. Here you go. So here's a look at Wednesday, 0Z, which is tonight. This is getting into Wednesday morning. You see that front forming just north of Tennessee. That is what we're keeping an eye on as it slowly moves through the area. This is Wednesday morning around 7 a.m., Wednesday afternoon. You can see slowly pushing through Tennessee, and you can see the increase in the green there. That is because of that cold front showing and pushing that moisture, that chance for thunderstorms. That green right there is the rain chance likely, and it can stall out over northern Alabama and not move through our area. But either way, some of these models we're looking at, this is the GFS, this is for valid as of August 23rd, so Saturday of this weekend. Let's move forward into next week. So this is a GFS. They're showing a lot more drier air than other models, but it's still cool to show you the difference. Look at that. Look at that drier tan color. It is predicting lower 60s to mid 50s by Tuesday of next week. This is the measurement of dew points, which helps us what that feels like temperature and helps measure the humidity in the air. So if that's the case, it is going to feel great next week. Now let's not get our hopes up because these are still long range models. This can change at any given moment, but also the Euro is not as intense with the level of dryness coming into our area, but it's still there. This is for Thursday, and we can still feel lower 70s for the area. So it's not having dry air push into our area compared to the GFS, but both are hinting at the possibility for it. This is for Friday of next week. That is a 67 over our area. So that's still in that noticeable category. But if you remember, we have been in that miserable category for quite some time. So either way, if we go down a category or two, we're definitely going to feel the difference. So that's kind of a good explanation on how cold fronts work here along the Gulf Coast, especially during our summertime months. And hopefully, crossing our fingers, we feel that break in the humidity. Just depends on how that cold front strengthens over time, seeing if it does dissipate earlier, and if it does dissipate later, we could see that drier air move in to the middle to late part of next week. But we'll continue to keep you updated on that. Follow the Storm Tracker team on social media. Watch Matt Barentine in the morning, Jason Smith in the evening, Nicholas Herboso and I during the days, and during the weekend you will be able to update you on the oppressive humidity, on if it's going to go down or not, as well as our thunderstorm chances over the next 10 days. Thank you so much for joining me on Next Weather. We'll see you tomorrow.